Begg say one time that
Okay. I just hit it.
he was asked. What's that?
I just hit it and it says live now.
Yeah,
Off
I'm
air.
hoping Keach fan will jump on here in a second.
Okay. Do you want me to click it back?
Click what back?
Where it? Okay, that's funny. Now I can't unclick the live. Did you do
You
that?
don't want it to be live or what?
No, I thought that I did that, but did you do that?
No, I did it.
Oh, okay.
Because I didn't know if that was what was keeping Keach fan from being able to jump on with this or not.
Okay.
Let me check. Maybe he's tried to email us or something. I don't see anything.
There's Keach fan.
Hold on a second. Oh, there we go. Are you there, Keach fan? Hello? Okay, we don't have any audio coming through on our end from Keach fan. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're on mute right now. Maybe try unmuting it. Okay, I heard something. No, not hearing anything. Do they provide a text box anywhere where we can talk through text?
Yeah, if you it's over on the left-hand panel. It's the first icon.
Oh, okay. Well, anyways, that is something that I kind of mentioned to my wife at one point, that I think in regard to in regard to evangelism, whenever I've watched Harvey, there is somewhat of a correlation that could be made there. That for Christians, I don't think it's all about having a program or a certain approach to evangelism, but more just if you spend a lot of time with your best friend, and when he's not around and maybe you're hanging out with a lot of people, his name will inevitably come up in conversation. And I think as I've heard Alistair Begg say, the same is true with our relationship with Christ. If we're truly Christians, we have a relationship with Christ. Eventually, at some point, his name will come up in conversation, and it won't be like a forced thing. It'll be something that just naturally happens. Yeah. And I've always liked that view of evangelism. And so whenever I watch Harvey, I kind of see a little bit of that in there. But that's just a little observation that I've made.
Yeah.
In discussions with my wife. So. Let's see here.
Have you seen the movie Donnie Darko?
I haven't.
Okay. There's
What's that
also
about?
there's a giant rabbit friend in that movie too.
Really?
Yeah. And so now I'm wondering if the director just kind of like totally ripped that off Harvey.
Maybe.
But it's kind of like a um, he's more of like a creepy character.
Hmm.
Um, and he basically tells um, who played Jake Gyllenhaal. He tells Jake Gyllenhaal basically that the world is going to end and at like the end of the month.
Oh
And
wow.
so there's like these different. It's basically all about predestination. That's the major theme of the movie.
Wow.
And the rabbit is kind of like his friend who's like leading him through all of these things that have to happen.
That's interesting. Is it more like predestination, or is it more like a determinism, like a secular deterministic worldview, fatalistic?
It's interesting because the director said that he's using Donnie as a Christ figure,
Huh.
but it's definitely not Christian theology. But I don't know enough about the normal. Here, let me hand off my son real quick.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's because it's not exactly like a sacrifice thing that he does at the end of the movie, but it is. But I don't really know exactly if he wills it to happen or if it just happens anyway.
Okay.
All right, Keach fan is saying he's gonna try something.
Okay. Yeah, I just saw that.
Um, but yeah, it's it's interesting because they have this scene where like this like strange uh, weightless water stuff basically like shoots out of their these different people's chests, and it's supposed to like be symbolic of a like a future plane because like as soon as that happens like the people like get up and follow wherever that cylinder of water goes, and it's supposed to be like telling you what's going to happen in like a time
Huh.
space thing. And so anyway, it's interesting how they try to communicate these ideas in film, but at the end of the day, it's probably more fatalistic than anything.
Wow.
So
Interesting. Well, Keach fan might have already watched that himself, and I know he's sounds like he's watched a lot more movies than I have. So, in the way that he talks about it, so you might want to we might want to bring that up with him so that we can see what he has to say about that, and that might lead into a good side discussion for you guys for a
I'm
minute
trying,
or two.
I'm trying to
Let
think.
me. What's that?
I'm trying to think if there's any other like large rabbits in any movies. It's kind of a strange thing that both of those movies share. You know, like okay, but
Yeah. Well, it started out as a stage play. I don't know which version you got on DVD, but a lot of the versions will have Jimmy Stewart as an older man giving an introduction to it and talking about having done it as a stage play and everything. I don't know if you got that version or not.
no, I was just able to see it, just the film.
What's that? I'm sorry, you're cutting out a little bit.
I said no, I was just able to see the film.
Oh, okay. All right.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you
Yes.
now.
There we
Good to
go.
hear from you, brother. All right. Good deal.
When
Well,
all else, I'll use my tablet. Okay.
okay. Well, there we go. Yeah, that'd be good. Well, one thing that I wanted to talk about, because I did one earlier last week with Richard and Gabriel, and one thing that I noticed in the conversation is the not just familiar with the Google Doc, but that each one of us just kind of take turns, almost kind of each one of us playing the interviewer from time to time, and so just at any point, feel free to interject, offer your own questions, or maybe ask one of the questions that you see on the Google Doc, one of those kinds of things. Don't feel the need to kind of wait around for me to ask specific questions or anything like that. I want it to be more kind of conversational. And as in any good conversation, from time to time, people interject and they have questions. They have certain things that just popped into their head that they think is important contribution. So definitely feel free to do that at any point. And I think it'll make the conversation go smoother and make it more easier listening for the listening audience. So I think that's it. We also had an issue that after doing the recording, I wasn't able to locate it, and so I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said if you don't record it public as you're recording it, then it won't save into YouTube, and you'll have lost your stuff. So we do, if y'all know of any technical issues that might help as well, that would be helpful.
Okay.
So no.
I'm gonna record on my side just from my phone, just so we have a backup.
Okay. Are you able to do that with good audio, or is it just the audio that's coming through your speakers?
I mean, that's what we use to. Yeah, it's what's coming through my speakers.
What?
So it'll at least have me clear.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it'll probably be a little bit gargled for you guys.
All right. Well, oh, and Luke, you hadn't. Last I looked, I haven't looked recently, but the last I looked, I didn't see that you gave anything by way of introduction for yourself. How I might introduce you on the Google Docs.
Each fan, is that how you want to be introduced?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if you wrote that out or if that was Billy.
Yeah.
No, that was me completely.
Yeah, I just transcribed that from CredoCovenant. So if there are any final edits you guys want to make before we get started, now's our time to kind of jump on the Google Doc and make any edits that we'd like to make.
Hold on for a minute. Let me get a power source for this tablet, okay?
Okay.
I'm gonna look what my Twitter says about me, my Twitter bio, because that'll be the at least 140 characters way of describing myself.
Okay. Close out some of these things I have open here.
Even though I work in the industry, sometimes technology hates me.
No, I fully understand.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, we're good.
All right, good deal. Now, real quick, let me see here. As far as your introduction, Keach fan, did you want me to maybe try to read through it real quick right now, so that whenever I read through it after we've started the podcast, I read it exactly how you want it read, or how you want to do
Sure. Give it a read through and let's see how it sounds.
that? Okay. Here with us today are Keach fan, the long-lost scion of the Wald-Newton family, and Train Baritsu, as was his famous cousin, who, hold on,
And
who
train.
uses his acerbic wit to tweak the noses of those that deserve tweaking.
That'll work.
I know I read that kind of slow, but all right,
It's
so
okay.
everything's pronounced properly.
I believe it's Wold Newton, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wold or Wald?
Wold.
Wold. Okay. Maybe
Yeah,
at some point you can give us a little bit of
and account your natural. You're in Texas, so I must take into account your natural ability to pronounce English.
That's funny. Oh wow. They're doing some painting at my church, and they just sent me a picture. It looks really good. Wow.
Great.
All right. All right. So let me get comfortable here. All right. Well, is there anything you guys wanted to touch on real quick before we get started? If not, we'll go ahead and get started.
Nope, I'm ready.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Billy Linhart. I'm the husband of one wife, father of 3 young children, the pastor of a small church in West Texas, and a blogger over at CredoCovenant.com. Here with us today are Keach fan, the long-lost scion of the Wald-Newton family, and trained in Baritsu, as was his famous cousin, who uses his acerbic wit to tweak the noses of those that deserve tweaking. Welcome, Keach fan.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. Good to hear your voice. Also,
Thank you very much.
What's that?
Thank you very much.
Also, we have with us today Luke Webster, who is a husband and a father and a Reformed Baptist and a frequent podcast enthusiast. Welcome, Luke Webster.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Well, today we're here discussing my favorite movie, which is my favorite movie of all time, which is Harvey. I've actually owned this movie 4 times on DVD, and the reason I've owned it 4 times is because every time I own it, I wind up letting somebody borrow it, and I don't get it back. So either they say, well, I thought I gave that back to you, or something winds up happening and I don't get the movie back. But, I don't know if you guys understand the feeling, but whenever I really like a movie, I really want other people to see it, and so I've taken to letting people borrow movies unwisely in the past. So that might be actually a topic that we might explore in the future, the wisdom of letting people borrow your movies.
Yeah. Or books.
Or books, yeah.
Oh, yes, especially books.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, before we get into today's topic, I have to ask, Keach fan. Now, in some of the conversations that you and I have had offline, I've come to find out that, and I think on some of the things that you've actually written on the blog, I've discovered that you're a little bit of an anime fan. You have a penchant for anime, and so I wanted to ask you, as someone who is a fan of anime, would you perhaps take a few minutes to make the case for anime and perhaps give a few recommendations for people just jumping into the genre?
Sure, not a problem. Anime is a very Japanese form of animation. Anime is short for Japanese animation, and it was started during the early 30s as a process of modernization. They saw what Disney was doing and wanted to be like that in Japan. In fact, you can blame a lot of the big-eyed look based upon the characters that Walt Disney did early on. When I was a kid, I was exposed to anime fairly early in my life, and I was fascinated by it because it was unlike any cartoon I had ever seen previous to that. It wasn't funny. It was serious. It dealt with serious issues, and it was more drama in it than anything else. And when I got older, I started looking for it, and that's what made me the fan that I am right now. Frankly, I don't think you would have had a Matrix movie or movies unless you had Ghost in the Shell. If Ghost in the Shell hadn't been done and created and exposed that to the Wachowski brothers, I think I pronounced that right, you would never have seen the Matrix. And in the same way, Studio Ghibli has produced some of the most well-respected and well-known films. And again, they're not just funny films. They're slice-of-life films. They're dramas. They're things that you look at and you can see, well, what is he talking about here? Why is he talking about what happens to the earth if you screw it up and stuff like that? And there's things in the films that make you think deeper. But if you really want to start off on just some suggestions, Castle Cagliostro, which is a Ghibli film, Studio Ghibli film, is what I call a caper film. It's got action, it's got romance, it's got drama, and it's all well done, well put together, and it is one of those classic films that if you're going to watch anime, that's one that I'd say, yes, watch that one just for the sheer fun of it. Another one for kids would be My Neighbor Totoro, which is a story about two little girls who move out into the country with their father, but their mom's in the hospital sick. And they go into the nearby forest, and they come upon Totoro, which is Spirit of the Woods. And they make friends with it, and Totoro helps them with the hardship of their mom being sick, and ultimately helps them go and visit their mom. And it's a great little film. It's very poignant, very fun, and it has things that you can look at, and you can watch it with your kids and talk it over with your kids and say, what do you think they feel when this was happening? What do you think about Totoro himself and stuff like that. Gives you a glimpse into Japanese culture at that time. And there are other ones there that you could look at. Studio Ghibli puts out, like Arrietty, which is based on the borrowers and stuff like that. But for a look at good quality anime, I'd say look at Studio Ghibli. Now, there's other studios out there, and they do pretty good work, and some of them do pretty lousy work, for lack of a better term for it. They're not what I'd call the best use of the genre.
Yeah. Yeah, my first exposure, I think, to anime, it might be contended by true, like, hardcore anime fans. I don't know. But my first exposure to it, I think, would have been the animated version of Street Fighter 2, which had a really good soundtrack. It had Soundgarden on the soundtrack and stuff like that. But I'm pretty sure that was done in kind of an anime form. I could be wrong. It's been a long time since I saw it.
I think I saw Street Fighter 2 a while back. But yeah, and that's part. Fighting anime is based. There's a lot of animes that are based on games and stuff like that. But, most of the anime are based on manga, popular manga that they've converted over into a film, and that's one of the things that many manga artists want to do is they want to get popular enough so they get turned into animation, and then that spurs on their popularity and bucks and stuff like that. But there are sport animes, Prince of Tennis, boxing animes, all kinds, historical ones that are based on samurai and stuff like that. So it just depends on what you're into.
Yeah.
My daughters, for a long time, were into mecha anime, which is giant robotic suits that blast the living daylights out of things. So,
like Gundam Wing.
Yes, big Gundam Wing fans.
I'm just starting to get into Gundam Wing now, because of the politics, believe it or not.
Well, I can see that.
Yeah. I had heard from some of my friends that I'd be interested in it for that reason, and that there's some interesting peace themes in it, and so I thought I'd check it out. So my wife and I sat down and watched probably about 6 episodes. That was interesting. But I wanted to ask real quick, have you ever heard of Flying House or Superbook?
They sound familiar. I got to be honest. Are they studios?
No, they were TV shows. They were kid shows, and I remember before I even knew what anime was when I was little. I can't remember if they were on PBS or what, but they were actually Christian stories. I think they were like Bible stories of some kind, but I don't know if they were by Christians.
Superbook. I think I recall seeing that.
Well, a couple of years later, when I don't know if Fox or Warner Brothers brought over Pokemon, but when
Right.
I saw that animation, I was like, oh, this is just like Flying House and Superbook. Just the way they animate humans is very similar.
Sure. The Flying House and Superbook probably had their work done overseas in either Korea or Japan.
Okay.
And that would have given them that same generic character that you see in Pokemon and a few of the others.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely look forward to looking into some of the anime now. I mean, I knew that it was bigger and broader than what I was aware of, but now that I'm aware of just um, some of the areas that it goes into and things like that, I'm actually quite curious. So I might start checking it out a little bit more. Well, that brings us into our next segment, which is it's entitled Extra Extra. And this is just the segment where we kind of talk about things that are in the news. And just real quick, I wanted to read off a list of, because we have the Oscars coming up, and I wanted to read off a list of the movies that are have been nominated for Best Picture. And I wanted to throw those out there, see if anybody had seen any of these or heard anything about them, and if anybody wants to venture to make any kind of predictions or anything like that. But the movies that have been nominated are a movie called Spotlight, The Big Short, which I haven't really heard a whole lot about The Big Short, but that looks kind of interesting from what I have seen about it. The Revenant, which I've heard amazing things about, and I know a lot of people that are actually predicting that that's going to be the big winner, the big takeaway. Mad Max Fury Road, I saw that one.
So did I.
Yeah, I personally wasn't very impressed by that one, but I'm a Thunderdome kind of guy, so there wasn't a whole lot of. This was a lot darker, I thought, than Thunderdome. But. And then there's The Martian, which I've also heard was really good. Bridge of Spies, which has Tom Hanks in it, which I haven't heard a whole lot except for just him going on late night shows and touting it. So I can't really speak as to what the critics thought about it or anything like that. And then finally Brooklyn and a movie called Room. So I don't know which ones of those maybe you guys have seen. From like I said, from what I've heard, it sounds like The Revenant's gonna just walk away with this one.
I've heard that too. I think Brian Godawa had a very interesting review of that, and if you get a chance, you should take a look at that. But yeah, I don't know. The only one that I've actually seen is Mad Max.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of these. I'm from what I have heard, a lot of people have been really excited about Revenant. But the most interesting thing about that is I think pretty much everyone knows about the story behind it now, just because of I guess talk shows and stuff. But even with people knowing how it ends and all of it, it just seems like people are still really excited about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and even if you don't have cable or talk shows like us, I mean, we all have friends that have probably seen it and have given it rave reviews, that kind of thing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it. But that'll probably be whenever it comes out on Redbox. Let's see here. I know Keach fans really disappointed that Star Wars didn't make that list.
You read my review of Star Wars, then you know how I felt about it.
Wow. Now I want to hear more about that, but I don't know if we have time.
Yeah, we'll have to get into that another time, definitely. Well, let's get into our discussion real quick of Harvey. There's quite a bit to talk about. I don't know. This might wind up being a couple episodes. I'm not sure. It depends on how much time you guys have tonight to discuss these things. But I did. Again, this is probably my favorite movie of all time, and so I'm really excited about this discussion. And so I guess the first question that I really wanted to start off with was, if you can recall, when was the first time that you actually saw the movie Harvey? And that's just kind of an open question. Whoever would like to tackle that first.
Well, I just saw it last night, so I don't have to think back too far. So
Yeah.
I think I was about between 13 and 15 when I saw it. So that was over 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was probably about the same age. I was probably actually for me it was probably mid to late high school years, but I've probably seen it about 20 times since then. Just going back, revisiting it, watching it a couple of times a year. So it's just a real endearing movie. Makes you feel better about life, I guess. But for me, um, so as I guess we'll start with Luke. As somebody who's brand new to this movie, um, what were your initial takeaways from the movie? What were your initial thoughts?
um, well, I guess the first thing is that the writing, the dialogue is very witty, and so it definitely keeps you. I know we'll talk about this more, but it keeps you listening with a close ear. And I really enjoyed a lot of the play that Jimmy Stewart has
Hold on,
with everyone.
Luke, real quick. I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. Slow down and let it catch up with you. I'm sorry. We'll
Okay.
edit this out. So, your initial thoughts on Harvey?
The way the dialogue went back and forth, I really enjoyed the give and take that Jimmy Stewart has with the other actors, and um, yeah, I don't know. I wrote down quite a bit of just all of what I thought the different themes were in the movie. Um, I was telling you earlier, I thought it was interesting that it's a comedy about mental illness, and when I first realized that, I was like, oh wow, that's uh, that's interesting. You don't see that a lot of times with all of the PC world that we live in now, and the trigger warnings and all that kind of stuff. You you're just not going to have a comedy about mental illness like they did here in Harvey. Um,
Did you think, even though they were dealing with such a sensitive subject, do you think that they dealt with it with good taste?
yeah, well, that's actually yes, if because we were talking about also earlier if there was a deeper meaning behind the movie, um, and if it is just surfacey, it's a funny movie, then yeah, I think it's in good taste. Um, but I don't know, some of the interesting things that I thought were happening in the background, I wasn't so sure if they were trying to move at a different message. Um,
A less appropriate message, you mean?
uh, yeah, because I guess because um, like one of the themes that comes out a lot in the movie is that um, like it's okay to treat mentally ill people poorly, like they're less than human.
Oh, okay.
And you actually hear that out of his sister's mouth. She says,
Hold on one second. You're lagging again. Give me a
"Okay,
second.
Do you think if I switch off
Okay.
my
Now
my
try again.
video?"
Hold on. You're still lagging. I'm sorry. Let's see here. Yeah, just turn off your camera and that might help. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, you hear it out of Mr. Dowd's sister when she says, she talks about how the people are being treated in this sanitarium, and she's fine with that. But as soon as she's treated that way as a crazy person, then she just can't believe that someone would be treated, someone who's not crazy would be treated in such a inhumane way.
Hmm.
And I thought, wow, like it is a profound way that um, you know, that she would voice this hypocritical thing. And I think hypocrisy is something that comes out a lot throughout the movie,
Yeah.
where it seems like the most professional or the most lettered people in the society seem to be the most hypocritical and backward and bad folks in the movie. And it seems like the most uh, uh, the working class or the just the working stiff, he seems to be the man over and over again who's the good guy, and he seems to be the most logical person in the movie. um, so I don't see that as like a sinister uh, theme in the movie, but I think that's there, and I do think that is something that seems to be communicated by Mary Chase in the movie.
Okay. Well, what about you, Keach fan? What were well, I guess I wouldn't say what are your initial impressions, because it's been a while since the first time you saw it, but I guess what are some things that you like, maybe some things that you would critique about the movie, some things that you would say are some of the best, the most important takeaways for this movie?
Okay. First of all, when I read up on this movie after watching it again, one thing that I saw that the author of the play, Mary Chase, I think it is, said that she didn't want Dowd to look like as a drunk, right?
Yeah.
In the movie, even though you see him frequently at the bar, and that seems to be where he goes all the time with Harvey to ease the problems of various and sundry people as they come into the local watering hole, for lack of a better term. So it makes me ask: is he actually insane, or is he a drunk?
Hmm.
And Harvey is just the pink elephant that he happens to see, or rabbit, as the case may be. So, would you say that Dowd is portrayed as a drunk, and he's drinking because of the social pressures that have been put upon him by his sister and his niece? Through that whole thing, you hear her say that he could have been so much better than he is right now, that he could have had this job here or had that position there. And all his life, it seems he's wanted to help his sister and make his sister feel better. And everything he's doing in his life is for his sister and his niece. There wasn't anything that he's doing for himself at all. And this seems to be what's driving him to drink and maybe what drove Harvey out of his subconscious. But
that's a very interesting take. And some of these things aren't really things that I've really thought a whole lot about. I do know that he has mentioned Jimmy Stewart in his introduction to this movie. He talks about how he's actually been confronted by men who are very disheveled. Maybe they have the smell of alcohol on them, that kind of thing, and they'll tell him, I have a friend like Harvey, and then they'll ask him something like, is he with you today, or something to that effect, and he'll say, oh no, he's on vacation in Paris or something. I don't know, but anyways, but he does recognize that there is a certain group of people that probably wouldn't meet high society standards that this movie really does appeal to. And the way that I've always looked at it, though, is not so much he drinks to escape, because he seems, of all of the characters, in regard to his approach to reality and his approach to interpersonal relationships, he seems to have a better handle on it than anybody else. Everybody else seems to be kind of blinded by their own bigotries and their own ways of viewing the world, whereas he's just very simply going through life and enjoying it, and enjoying the people that he meets, and enjoying the beverages that he partakes of, and especially the company that he keeps with Harvey. But if people get past their prejudices and they really look at him and Harvey and that whole dynamic, what they'll see is that Harvey is really the best part of him, and as opposed to being kind of like this demon that comes out as a result of his drinking. Does that make sense?
Sure, I can see that. Would you say that Harvey is his facilitator for making other people feel better?
I would say that that Harvey accentuates what the best of him. He takes what's the best in him or in anybody that he comes in contact with, as this Puka, this character, and he accentuates the best in those people. I think this might actually be a good time, real quick, before we get into even more deep waters, to kind of just pause and give a little bit of a synopsis for our listeners. Because a lot of what we're talking about here, it requires a little bit of prior knowledge of the overall storyline. So I'll try to avoid spoilers here, but basically, Harvey is a movie about a man named Elwood P. Dowd, and he's played by Jimmy Stewart, the really famous actor from the 40s and the 50s and beyond. And what's portrayed in the movie with this character Elwood P. Dowd, you get this sense that he has been a high society man, a man about town, who had lots of friends, lots of people in high society that really respected him. He had a lot of potential in the business world and maybe even in politics. But then something happens around about the time that his mother dies, and this character comes into his life, this character Harvey. And as a result of him coming into his life, he takes up drinking, and he stops hanging out with the high society folk, and he starts hanging out with what his sister would see as kind of the rabble in society. And that backdrop only gets you to where the movie begins, which is with his sister trying to get her daughter into society so that she can find a husband for her. And she views her brother Elwood as a kind of a barrier to getting her involved in society, because he has this friend Harvey, and everybody that is introduced in this high society, everybody that's introduced to Harvey is automatically repelled, because Harvey is a 6-foot, 3-inch tall white rabbit that only Elwood can see. And so she's very embarrassed by this, and people that are introduced to Harvey by Elwood are embarrassed for him, except for those who are kind of on the lower rung of society, and they can kind of, they've been there and they can kind of understand, and maybe they think that he has a mental illness, and so they they kind of treat him with a little bit of empathy, and but they see him as this very endearing character, and so they warm up to him very quickly. And you see that throughout the movie. To me, it's a movie largely about breaking down one's prejudices and being willing to really let somebody speak for who they are before making judgments about them in a lot of ways. let's see. So, so that brings me to the next question, I guess. What would you guys think about um, the writing of the movie? Do you think it's a well-written movie? Do you would y'all are there certain things in there as far as the dialogue, as far as the way that the plot is laid out that maybe you would prefer that it had been done differently? Anything like that?
I mean, I think it's interesting because the movie is so based on the interaction between the characters and the funny dialogue that they have
Mm-hmm.
that you don't even realize that there's only I think there's only like really like three different scenes in the movie as far as or places that you go. You know, there's the house at the very beginning.
Mm.
You know, there's the sanitarium, and then there's the bar,
Charlie's place.
Charlie's. But
Yeah.
then they go right back to the sanitarium. And so it's interesting that you know in a normal movie, you think, well, you know, you have to move the plot along by some you know um, real complex storyline. But really, they tell a story with this movie that's just it's completely based um, on the script, you know, or on the words themselves.
Mm.
And so I think that's it speaks to just the strength of the actors. Um, you know, there's a couple actors that have really strong performances that I was really impressed by, and
Mm.
not just Jimmy Stewart because you know we all know that Jimmy Stewart can act.
Yeah.
So
I think you look at movies like this, you got to compare them to similar movies of the time. So I look at Harvey, and I'd look at some of the work that Capra did. You know, it happened one night, stuff like that, and or like the Thin Man movies, which is very witty back and forth uh, uh, dialogue between the people there, or even My Man Godfrey, which is a classic William Powell movie that has that snappy back and forth dialogue, and everything is moved by the dialogue, and you don't see that now anymore,
Mm-hmm.
mainly because I think people just can't conceive of being able to talk in that manner, that wittily, for a lack of a better term. Um, you don't see that with a lot of movies out here that being produced now. Uh, it's it's grown base in the
Yeah.
speech, um, and
I,
that's
I
one of
I would
the nice
actually
things
like
about
to.
Harvey. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, you go ahead.
No.
Okay.
Uh,
I would actually like to see a study done on that because it seems like that phenomenon is kind of almost cyclical, you know, where in the silent era, obviously, the movies couldn't be dialogue based, it had to be very visual. And then immediately following that, whenever you move into the talkies era, um, they were very heavy on dialogue. They relied on it quite a bit, and a lot of the movie makers, the directors from the silent era, really reacted against that. They didn't like this over emphasis, this extreme, in their view, extreme reliance on dialogue, and so they pushed more for the visual. Sorry, and it seems like throughout movie history, you have this kind of going back and forth of um, relying more on the visual and the effects and telling a story with the camera rather than with the microphone, and then going the other direction with it and telling a story through the characters and their dialogue, those kinds of things. And I think we're in an era now where the pendulum has swung in the direction more of um, special effects, to the point that people are getting very sick of these overly visual movies, and they're moving more. I think we're about to go into, hopefully, at least for a stint, go into a more dialogue-driven type of movie making. And then, but I think that from going back to what we were talking about earlier with the Oscars, it seems like with the movie The Revenant, from what I've been told about it, there's very, very little dialogue, and the story is very much told with visuals. And to a certain extent, it seems like that's where we're at right now. That's just the time that we're in right now as far as movie making. People want to tell the story visually more, but a lot of them do it in a really bad way. They rely way too heavily on computerized graphics and things like that. So,
do you think that's because, unlike the people who would watch Harvey, they were more literate, having read more books and grown up through the medium of radio, where the stories were told over the radio, and you had to use your imagination to really conceive of what was going on, and just that whole more literate group than what you now.
Yeah, I think that you're hitting on a really good point there, because, I mean, look at what we're doing right now. We're doing a podcast, and that's part of the reason I think that we will fairly soon start moving back into a more dialogue-driven type of movie making, is because you look at the trends as far as media is concerned. We are moving back into an era of talk radio, podcasts, those kinds of things, and we're moving, at least in some pockets of society, we're moving away from the visual. And people are just getting sick of these directors. I don't want to name any names. I could. But these directors that are relying so heavily on CGI graphics and all this stuff that it's to the point of just, I mean, nausea. You don't even want to see it anymore. I think of movies like, and I'm going to reveal my deck here, but
Your prejudice.
yeah, but movies like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Transformers 1, 2, 3, and 4, and pretty much it all follows the same line of a scene that really should only take about maybe 45 seconds to play out in a movie theater. It's stretched out to like a 5-minute fight scene. And there's always some form of falling, and scaffolding falling, and buildings falling, and while the fighting's going on, with way too much detail on the screen, way more than anybody could really be trying to pay attention to at one given time. And I think people are just burned out, or I am, anyways. I'm just burned out with all these special graphics, and I want people to just get back to a simpler form of movie making.
So you're talking like the old trope about if there's a chase scene at some point in time, it's got to go through a fruit cart at some.
Yeah, or you could do like Hitchcock, where the good guy gets past the fruit cart, but then the fruit cart obstructs the road so that the cops can't catch up or whatever, So.
Right.
Isn't there always supposed to be like two guys that are carrying like a big mirror?
Yes, that's another trope that's always played on. Now, I find this interesting because of your dislike of the recent Mad Max movie,
Mm,
William, because that movie went old school
yeah.
and did not use CGI effects. It went very old school and did it like the original Mel Gibson stuff.
Okay. I didn't know that
Okay.
about that.
Yeah. When I went to see it, I went to see it with my son, and he was all over that. He was so impressed by the fact that they went that old school that when he saw the director that you're speaking of
Mhm.
in one of his other movies, he was, as you said, quite sick of it because he was tired of the computer generated special effects. Um, so,
Well, that does give me a greater appreciation for it, but at the same time, for me, it wasn't so much the special effects that I didn't like about Mad Max. It was just the hopelessness and that's another thing. That's a trend right now in movie making that I hope goes away soon. Is this ultra realism where we try to show things in as grotesque and as and I don't mean this in like a uh, like in a the way that people mean it today, but like a vulgar way, this you know the movie what was the movie with Brad Pitt with the tankers? Fury.
oh,
The movie Fury comes to mind, where we're not just going to show you a war movie. We're going to show you how hopeless and despairing and uh, amoral war can be. And it seems like everybody's trying to come out with something like that nowadays, to the point where I'm just like, can we just have some feel-good movies? you know, just give me a couple of feel-good movies. You
I'll agree
and
with you there,
yeah,
yeah, especially when it comes to Fury. Fury really infuriated me, if I can use that term, uh, mainly because my father fought in World War II.
mm,
The men there did not have that amoral sense. That whole thing was thrust upon them, and just um, I was going to write a review of that movie, and I was so mad
mm,
when after I saw it. I couldn't put anything down coherent.
yeah.
But
Well, that gets me to my love of Hitchcock. Hitchcock would always talk about. He says, I don't make movies that are realistic. He said there's this trend right now where people want to show everything as it is. So, you have a woman, you go to a movie theater and you spend all day doing the dishes, getting the kids round up and everything, and then you go to the movie theater with your husband, and he's talking about women, and you're sitting there with your husband and you look up on the screen and it's a woman doing the dishes and rounding her children up, and he's like, why would anybody want to see that? I mean, he said we go to movies to escape reality, not to be confronted with it. And that gets us right back to Harvey. I mean, that's one of the things I love about Harvey is it's not ultra realistic. At the same time, it's not completely fantastical either. You know, they do kind of show their hand at the end of the movie, and this is kind of a spoiler alert here. Um, but at the end of the movie, they definitely give you a strong sense that Harvey really is real, with the swing on the front porch and everything, and so you really do get that sense that he really is real, and I like that about the movie. It's removing you from a reality that but it's not so removed from your current reality that you can't relate. if that makes sense.
Well, if I can just explode your brain here for a second, um, I think another possibility that we need to talk about is that um, Mary Chase is saying by the end of the movie that you've been sucked in yourself into
Oh,
the mental illness. So,
wow.
I mean, let's not rule that out.
Yeah.
No, I think you got something there because look at what happened to the chief psychiatrist.
Yeah, what was his name? Chimley?
Chumley.
Chumley.
Chumley,
Chumley.
right? Look what happened to him. He saw Harvey,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Yeah.
and it scared him to death until he realized the benefits that Harvey could bring to him.
Mm-hmm.
That little paradise in Akron, where the woman would say "there"
Mhm.
to him. Boy, that says something right there.
Yeah.
Um, and not to mention his sister, who says, "Sometimes I see the rabbit myself."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
that gets me to my next question. What are some of y'all's favorite lines? Maybe some of your favorite scenes from the movie?
my absolute favorite scene is the one just before his sister stops the shot, where
Mm.
the cab driver says, "Oh yeah, I've seen these guys come in and we stop and watch the sunset, even though the sunset may not even be there, or watch the birds or something like that. When they can't come out of there, they're just, you know, regular people, and you know what stinkers they are."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that is the exact best thing. It is saying that whatever they're doing there, whatever shot they're giving there, is turning him back into a regular person. And that actually speaks to the depravity of the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks also to the dignity of intellectual people with intellectual disabilities as well. That there is something endearing, something beautiful about the way that God has made these people. And if you allow yourself to break outside your comfort zone and to invite somebody into your life who is, from an intellectual standpoint, maybe from a physical standpoint, it's very different from your normal, that person could very easily turn into a tremendous blessing in your life. And oftentimes that is the norm. I mean, people don't realize that because they don't expose themselves to this entire community out there, of people who have these disabilities. But they really are some of the greatest blessings that God has given to us. And because and it reminds me of Jesus saying, um, you know, uh, saying that we should have faith like children, you know, and yeah, so that's just, yeah, that is a very heartwarming scene, and it shows you, because I mean, when you first meet this cab driver, you think, man, this guy's rough, he's rude. um, I don't know if I like this guy. He's kind of imposing a little bit, until you hear the way that he talks about people with intellectual disabilities, these people that he brings from town to come out there, and he talks about them with such dignity, and he talks about us normal people with a little bit of contempt, but you get the impression that it's right that we would have contempt for that way of looking at reality, you know. Were there any other lines or scenes that really stood out to you, Keach fan?
Um, well, I'd like to hear what Luke has to say about
Well,
what.
Yeah, one of the ones that comes to me is after the doctor is telling him his um the about the place in Akron that he'd like to go.
Hmm.
Uh, the line that Dowd says right after that is so funny, and it almost seems like it wasn't even written. It was just like really what Dowd would say, which is, do you think after 2 weeks you'd want her to say something else?
Yeah.
I was just like when I heard that, I almost rolled off the couch. It was so funny. And it because it what is he getting at? That this guy's his own idea of perfection, is that it's his idea of what the perfect life is, and Dowd really can't relate to that
Yeah.
necessarily, or anyway, it's just kind of anyway, I thought that was pretty funny.
Because for him, a woman bringing you beer and telling you poor, poor thing is a source of uh, information, a source of companionship, that kind of thing. Whereas Chumley's looking at her as just another object in the scene that he's created in his mind.
Yeah.
He's objectifying her, really.
Yeah, I mean, if we can go take a little bit of an excursus, what do you guys think about the women in the movie? Uh, this was written by a woman,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems like all of the women in this movie are either silly or, I don't know, there's not a whole lot going on as far as virtue.
Hold it. Would you say that's true about the nurse?
Uh, I mean, I'm trying to think of a particular virtue. I mean, she seems like she's taken with this doctor who I don't think that he's a good character.
Yeah, he doesn't have any redeeming virtues
So I
at
think
all.
it
But he
reflects poorly on
did.
her that she would find him a suitable mate or someone that she's interested in.
Okay, but think about what happens at the bar.
Yes. The empathy.
Okay, empathy. The thing that Dowd brings out in the doctor
Mm.
for the
That's true.
nurse, showing the nurse as a beautiful woman and opening the doctor's eyes to that fact.
Mm.
Yeah.
So the doctor has the potential for being a good mate, for let's say, okay, but he's too caught up to notice the beauty of the woman
Yeah.
that is played by the nurse.
Yeah. No, that's true.
Yeah, and not only that, but getting back to what we were saying earlier about Harvey bringing out the best in Elwood. Elwood has that exact. It seems that he has that exact same effect on everyone else in his life. Actually, for him and Harvey, they either expose the best in people or they expose the worst in them, because a lot of people will just walk away. And he talks about that in the scene where he explains how he met Harvey, and he talks about introducing Harvey to people and um, his interpretation of their reaction and how they some are they fall in love with Harvey right away, and they spend time with him and they have good laughs and everything. They join him for a drink, and then there's others, and it sounds like it's the overwhelming majority of others that they leave, and he thinks that there's a little bit of jealousy there, maybe, and he
Right.
makes the statement. He says there's a little bit of jealousy in all of us, and I think that's really sad, don't you?
Hmm.
And I thought that was very. That was a really touching moment. That wasn't my favorite moment in the movie, but that's definitely a really touching moment, for sure. My favorite
I think
moment are the little endearments that he throws out here and there. There's a scene where he's coming in to the sanitarium. It's toward the end of the movie, and he's grabbed a flower, and he's looking at his jacket, and the people that come over there and they grab him, they're in a rush, as they are throughout the whole movie, and he's totally not. He's at his own pace, and he looks at Miss Kelly and he says, "Miss Kelly, would you have my flower? I seem to have misplaced my buttonhole."
Yeah. That got me too. I was like, oh man, that's hilarious.
Yeah, so he gives it to her, but then there's this, probably 10 minutes that lapse, and he goes into the doctor's office, and they have that whole scene where he says the classic line, he says, the doctor's recounting the whole hustle and bustle of the day and all these terrible things that his sister's done, and he says, "Don't you have any righteous indignation?" And he says, "Oh, doctor," he says, my mother used to say to me, Elwood, she always called me Elwood. She'd say, Elwood, in this life, you must be oh so smart or oh so pleasant. Well, for years I was smart. I recommend pleasant, and you may quote me, right? So he goes through that whole line. That's my favorite line of the whole movie.
Yeah.
And then after they leave the office and they come out, he's trying to talk them into going back to Charlie's place, and they're all trying to convince him to stay. And he says, "So I plan to go. You think we should stay?" He says, "That's good." He says a little bit of controversy or a little bit of disagreement in every conversation is a healthy thing. And then he looks over at Miss Kelly and he says, "Oh, Miss Kelly, when you wear my flower, you make it beautiful." And then they have this whole scene where he's quoting poetry to her and everything, and finally she looks up at him and she says, "I'll never be happier," And it just makes you, if I could just figure out the way to talk to my wife to make her never feel happier, than she does at that moment, It just, I don't know. I love scenes like that through the movie. So we already talked about a little bit about the performances of the actors in the movie. Did y'all want to touch on that briefly, or?
Yeah, I thought that I'm trying to remember her name, or Vita
Louise. Her name's Josephine Hull. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. I was so I really believed her performance. Obviously she's shrill almost the whole way through the movie, but she's got some great close-ups, and I mean it's her delivery. It's funny then, when she's the one that's accused of being crazy by the younger doctor, and the way that she plays that, and even after when she gets out and there's all that confusion about the orderly she felt that she was not handled properly with, all of that.
Did you notice how edgy that scene was?
There's two parts of the movie that were very there's a lot of innuendo in it.
Yes.
And I stopped it, and my wife and I talked about it. I was like, wasn't that innuendo? And it's so quick that you don't really catch it. But yeah, it is interesting.
Well, in that particular scene, I wouldn't say it was innuendo so much as just overt, because she's talking about sex and that kind of thing. And the daughter is abnormally interested in what she's talking about. Oh, he ripped my clothes off and he dumped me in a vat of water. And when they started asking me questions, they wanted to know all about these sex things. And then she looks at the judge and she says, "Is that all they talk about in places like that? Is sex?" And
he says, "Do you want me to get my gun?"
Yeah. But then there's the moment, and this is one of my favorite moments, and I don't know if anybody hardly ever catches this, but she says something like, "Why don't they just go on walks and clear their minds?" And then she says that the judge used to go on walks all the time, and then Myrtle May, the daughter, looks at him and she says, "Did you?" To insinuate that, to clear his mind of that particular subject matter, and he just kind of turns to the side with this shameful look, I thought it was kind of funny. Anyways.
Yeah.
Well,
Josephine Hall definitely was I think one of my favorites of the movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she won an Academy Award for that.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Well, I love being vindicated in my position.
There you go. The Academy agrees.
But yeah, since psychiatry was mainly Freudian during that time period, that's all it would be talking about. But
Yeah.
but you got to look at how they handle that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They handle that in a way that I didn't feel like I was blushing.
Yeah.
Not that I can blush anymore, but you see what I'm saying? I could have had 13-year-old girls in the room and not feel like I'd have to tell them to leave the room.
Yeah. Yeah. They handled the subject matter with dignity.
Right.
It was funny, but it was dignified. Yeah.
Right.
And let's see here. I don't know. I mean, if any of these questions y'all would like to handle, that's fine as well. So what do you think? Okay, and we kind of briefly talked about this. And getting back to Josephine Hull's performance, she did have a very visual performance. The scene of the woman singing at her luncheon, and then it kept kind of zeroing in on her face and her reaction to what she was seeing of this rotund woman singing this song, and she starts singing hop 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 hippity hop, and then you see her actually kind of bouncing to the song, and then Josephine Hull's just kind of giving her this look like, you're not really doing that right now, are you? And she does it with such I don't know, just she's got great physicality to her performance, I think. Even though it's a very dialogue-driven movie, there are those very visual scenes, and like the mime scene, as at the very beginning of the movie when Elwood is crossing the street, and Harvey's kind of lagging behind, and the fire truck's coming, and so Harvey kind of dips back and pulls him the rest of the way across the street. I thought that mime scene was just gold. It kind of clues you in that there's something a little bit off here. What's going on. So what kind of audience might appreciate Harvey today? If you, what kind of movie directors or movie genres that are out there that people are kind of getting into, the people that like that kind of movie or that director or what have you, who they would also like Harvey? Who would you point to, or what fan base would you point to as far as that's concerned?
I'd point toward boomers more than I would point toward mills or X's. No offense, gentlemen.
Yeah.
But I got to be honest. Unless you've actually grown up with this as part of your normal everyday thing. I mean, my kids were unfortunate enough to have had me feed them old movies. So they developed an appreciation for old movies, except for my youngest, who prefers to read.
Hmm.
Yes, where did I go wrong? But I look at friends of my son. Let's take, for instance, they suddenly find Casablanca or one of those classic Cary Grant movies or something like that.
Uh-huh.
They're charmed by the thought that a man can wear a hat and look like a man.
Yeah.
And how do you get that appreciation for this type of movie in someone who is immersed in a video game 48 hours a day?
Mm. Yeah, that's definitely difficult. I think there is, for modern movie makers, if they really want a younger generation to appreciate older movies, then there is a certain obligation that they have to bridge that gap. And there are a couple of movie makers that I think have done that, at least to a certain degree. But before I get into that, what about you, Luke? Is there a any particular segment of moviegoers today that you think might take a liking to Harvey?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. Maybe I'm just being optimistic, but I want to say that anyone, who at least had the time and wanted to sit down, or had the time to sit down and watch the movie would enjoy the movie. But having heard Keach Fan, explain, his side, yeah, I mean, you're probably right, Keach. I think that um, I think that there's a lot in this movie that might be initially off-putting to younger audiences. Just it being black and white is
Yeah.
is one thing that immediately, if you're not, if all of your movies are not black and white, then this one's going to seem like you're losing out on something, when it's not really the case. When you talk about Josephine Hall and being able to, look at her expressions, having color, I don't think would change that fact.
Hmm.
No.
And so, yeah, you're right. You're right. It's probably mostly going to be geared towards baby boomers, but um, I don't know. That doesn't mean that we can't try to market it. So,
Yeah.
hopefully by putting
And
out a
and I would
podcast.
actually, I'll say this. Yeah. I would say I'm with Keach Fan on that. A lot of the movies that I like, I find that I am kind of in that right alongside a lot of baby boomers in that regard, because I was raised by a mom who very early on introduced me to Audrey Hepburn and Fred Astaire and stuff like that, and I grabbed a hold of it and I liked it, but I know that most of my generation didn't. But there are a couple of movies, or movie makers especially today, that I think, if you like some of the simplicity and the wit in some of these movie makers today, then you might actually appreciate Harvey as well. And I'm specifically thinking of um, the more comedic offerings of the Coen brothers, such as Raising Arizona and the Hudsucker Proxy, things like that. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? That do force you into another time and force you to leave, 21st century America and transport yourself into another time and another way of thinking. Um, if you like something like that, then you might actually have an appreciation for Harvey as well. Another one that I think is also, I think if you like it, then you might like Harvey, is the modern remake by Ben Stiller of The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. I think that was a
Yeah.
very simply done movie. Very simple characters being confronted by very extraordinary situations. And I thought the way that it was done, it was very endearing. It's not the type of movie I normally expect from Ben Stiller, and it's his directorial debut. And I was very surprised by it because I usually don't like Ben Stiller in movies.
Well, Zoolander was a tour de force, but
So I hear.
yes, I would.
Now with the sequel.
Now with the sequel, yes. But how can they get past that whole gasoline spray thing? I would agree with you that remake of Walter Mitty was unbelievable. I could not believe I was seeing this, and I enjoyed it so much, especially having watched the original one.
Hmm.
And that one, I was thinking, who can do Danny Kaye, really? I mean, seriously. Who can get that same sense of goofiness that you see he has in, like, in the Inspector General or the one where he plays the court jester. I think that's the name of it. But just that whole frenetic character that he is in a movie, and man, I was thinking Stiller's never going to capture that, and he didn't. He didn't. He went off and did the movie in a totally different way, but it's stuck to Thurber's story, and that was the important part about it, is that it had that element of Thurber's story of this secret life that Walter Mitty, this accountant, has inside of his head all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Stiller did a great job with that, and I would agree that would be good if he does another one similar to it.
Mm-hmm.
But how well did that do? That's the question you have to ask.
Yeah.
It's like you've got I hate Will Ferrell. Okay, I hate Will Ferrell. But Stranger Than Truth is one of the best movies I've seen him do in a long, long time. And it was a serious movie, and it had serious themes in it. It had these things about life and death and destiny and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it bombed because they want him to be stupid. That was a great movie. And Adam Sandler in Rain Over Me. Have you seen that?
In which movie?
Where he plays this guy devastated by what happened in 9/11. And just, he can't get past it. And he comes across his friend, and his friend helps him out to get past this whole thing that happened to him. It just chokes me up every time I think about it. But it's a great movie.
What was the name of the movie again?
Rain Over Me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I need to check that out. The
And
most serious movie I think I've seen Adam Sandler in was Punch Drunk Love.
Yeah, what do you think about that one?
that was a good one too.
Yeah.
That was a good movie. That was a very good movie. But he's never gonna. You're never gonna see him do that again. You're never gonna see him do it again. He's gonna do these Walk through one where he's doing fart jokes and all this other stuff. It's not going to happen because they're not going to let him do that kind of serious stuff.
Yeah. Well, anything that you guys wanted to say to kind of wrap things up? Any parting thoughts or anything as far as
Watch
Harvey
this
is
movie.
concerned?
Watch this movie.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. Pick it up. It's a good movie.
Yeah, definitely worth your time. And if you have a wife, she'll enjoy it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you're not familiar with it, if you're not familiar with Jimmy Stewart, which I think everybody, if you don't watch this movie, at least avail yourself of some Jimmy Stewart at some point in your life, and you will be grateful for it. Jimmy Stewart, I mean, one thing that I was wanting to get into, and we'll close. I guess I'll close with this because we never talked about it in the podcast. But one thing that I really think that people should really seek to avail themselves of this who I think is probably one of, if not the greatest actor of all times, and he's a great human being on top of it as well. If you don't know anything about the life of Jimmy Stewart, he was an actor in Hollywood. He had acted as a supporting actor in quite a few roles, and had one or two starring roles, and had become an A-list actor, starring in movies like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and others before Pearl Harbor happened. And after Pearl Harbor, after we got involved in World War II, he was one of the first, if not the first, A-list actor to volunteer to go into combat. Him and other guys. I mean, there's a whole list of different Hollywood actors that actually signed up to go into combat, which is way different than the Hollywood that we know today. And he came back from the war. He did a couple more Capra movies, but then he went off into westerns. He did quite a few westerns. He was in 4 Hitchcock movies altogether, and he, to the best of my understanding from the reading that I've done, he wasn't just a Christian, but he was an active member in the churches that he attended. He was a lifelong member at a Presbyterian church in Pennsylvania, and he also served as an elder at the First Presbyterian Church of Beverly Hills, which a lot of people aren't aware of. And he remained in the military all the way up until I think the mid-70s, and he retired as a brigadier general out of the Air Force. And I think I read that he flew over 40 missions, combat missions, during World War II as a combat pilot. So just an amazing, amazing man. And you watch this movie, and you wouldn't even think this man was ever in the military or anything. He's just this very unassuming, very meek, kind-hearted man. And from what I can tell from all the interviews I've seen, people talking about him and everything, that was him in real life. So when I watch Harvey, I don't feel like I'm just watching a character. I feel like I'm actually watching a certain aspect, maybe a different nuance of the actual character and demeanor of this man that I think is just one of the greatest actors Hollywood has ever seen, Jimmy Stewart. So.
Hear, hear.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll close with that. I really appreciate you guys sticking around for so long. I think we went over an hour and a half, and I really appreciate y'all's patience and your willingness to do this. Just I know it's a brand new thing, and it can be kind of I don't know, stressful to think, oh, I've never done this before with this guy. I don't really know much about him, and I really appreciate you guys just giving me a chance and giving this podcast a chance. I really do.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun for me.
Yeah.
I appreciate you letting me do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, if y'all have any ideas of what to do next or anything like that, y'all feel free to send out an email. If you're looking at the document that we have already up that I've shared with everybody, and you say, oh, we 3 of us signed up for this. I'd like to do that next. Just put everybody's email address in the subject or in the email address line, and email everybody, and we'll schedule it. So.
Okay.
Now, when is this scheduled to be broadcast?
Well, what I'm wanting to do.
We're still shooting for June. We still shooting for June.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
Summertime. Yeah, because I want to get as much audio as possible.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
And what I would like to do is once I get the actual file and I can get it in an audio format, I might send it to you guys so that if there's something that you think, man, my audio sounded terrible there, maybe you could re-record your response to the question or whatever you were saying in that moment, if you want to, if that's something that you want to do. Or maybe you think that you should have had a better answer or whatever. And when we send the audio files to Gabriel, who has offered to do the editing, he might be kind enough to splice those in there in place of the audio that we just recorded. If that's something you want to do, just kind of recording something on your own, just a little sound file. And maybe send it to Gabe with some notes, at this point in the recording, if you could insert this in, I think it will sound better, that kind of thing.
Cool.
Alrighty?
I'll have to get the hardware and the machine to work. Other than that, I think we'll be fine.
Alright. Well, I look forward to it, and I look forward to future episodes with you guys.
Appreciate it.
Me too.
All right. God bless you guys. You guys have a good night.
Good night.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.